Welcome to Taste China Learn English.
Yes, welcome.
That's the very catchy opening line from today's source material, which really sets the stage for our deep dive today.
It really does. It's a great hook.
Right. And we're going to explore this really fascinating intersection of language, culture, and, well, sensory shock, basically.
Oh, definitely sensory shock.
Because we're looking at how we use vocabulary to describe an experience that makes some tourists like literally run in the opposite direction.
Which is not an exaggeration.
No, not at all. We are talking about the legendary, very polarizing, and kind of infamous street food Chinese stinky tofu.
Ah, yes. The one and only.
And because our source material today is geared toward English learners, we are going to deliberately use clear, accessible language.
Right. Keep it approachable.
Exactly. Keep a relaxed conversational pace. You really want to take the time to chew on the vocabulary that captures this intense cultural phenomenon for you.
It's honestly the perfect subject for this kind of exploration. I mean, when an experience is this overwhelming to the human senses, slowing down is key.
Yeah, you really have to.
Right, because examining the specific words used to describe it helps us understand the psychology behind the food. You can't just call it bad or good.
No, those words are entirely insufficient. So, okay, let's unpack this. How do you even begin to describe an experience that makes some tourists literally run away?
That's the big question.
Like, picture yourself walking down a crowded street at a vibrant night market. You were enjoying the evening, you're hungry, and then bam.
You hit the wall.
Yes, you suddenly hit this invisible wall. It's an odor so intense that people genuinely, stop in their tracks, turn around, and walk away.
They absolutely do, long before you see the food stall.
Exactly. Long before you see the bubbling oil or the line of people waiting to buy it, you smell it.
The chronological progression of stinky tofu always starts with the nose. And the specific word in the text that perfectly captures this initial, just overwhelming shock is pungent.
Pungent. That's a great word.
It is. When we describe a scent as pungent, we aren't just saying it's unpleasant. We are describing the physical behavior of the smell.
How do you mean?
A pungent odor is sharp. It's penetrating. It doesn't just float gently in the air. It actively hits your olfactory system instantly.
Oh, it pierces right through the atmosphere. I mean, if you're standing in a massive night market, there are dozens of competing smells.
Oh, easily.
You have sweet pastries frying, you have heavy barbecue smoke, maybe exhaust from passing scooters.
Right. It's a very chaotic environment.
But a pungent smell cuts through every single one of those layers. It demands your absolute attention.
It really does. It acts almost like a siren going off in your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an evolutionary warning system, honestly. Our brains are wired to detect sharp, aggressive odors as a sign of potential danger.
Which makes sense, survival-wise.
Exactly. But here is where the language gets incredibly nuanced. We have this aggressive, pungent smell, but another deeply descriptive word used in the source for this exact same aroma is funky.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
When I hear the word funky, my brain does not immediately go to a warning siren. I don't necessarily think of a threat. Is funky always a bad thing?
Not at all. And that's the beauty of it. In English, funky is one of the most layered, complex words we have, especially when it comes to the senses.
Okay, that's interesting.
It operates in this gray area between strange and wonderful.
Strange and wonderful, like the source's analogy of old school jazz music.
Yes, that is such a perfect comparison.
Right, because when you first listen to a complex jazz record, the notes might sound entirely wrong.
Just completely chaotic to a new listener.
Yeah, the rhythm is syncopated, the melody is unpredictable, and it definitely doesn't follow the simple, satisfying structure of a mainstream pop song.
No, it really doesn't.
It sounds offbeat. It sounds weird. But as you keep listening, you realize that the strangeness is exactly what makes it brilliant. It has a groove.
It is funky.
It's funky. Or, if we stay in the culinary world like the text suggests, think about a high-end blue cheese.
Blue cheese is the perfect parallel here.
You look at it and it is literally visibly covered in mold.
Yeah, which goes against every instinct.
And then you smell it, and it has an incredibly sharp, aggressive odor that makes you hesitate. But for people who know and love blue cheese, that funkiness is the entire point.
Oh, absolutely. They pay premium prices for that exact smell.
Right. It is unconventional, but it has an undeniably good vibe once you understand it.
Exactly. And understanding it requires time and exposure. You don't just wake up one day and decide you inherently love the pungent smell of moldy cheese, right? Or stinky tofu.
No, definitely not.
This requires what we call an acquired taste.
An acquired taste. We use that phrase all the time, but it is actually a pretty profound concept when you think about it.
It really is. It explains the fascinating psychology of how humans interact with challenging experiences.
Right.
An acquired taste is something your brain initially rejects. The first time you encounter it, you might strongly dislike it. The pungent scent triggers your alarm.
Like your danger sirens.
Exactly. But through repeated exposure and, through watching other people enjoy it, you push past your initial hesitation.
You learn to love it.
Right. You literally acquire the appreciation over time.
See, what's fascinating here is how the English language uses a word like funky to bridge that exact psychological gap.
That's a really good point.
It takes an aroma that triggers our primal danger alarms and gives it a label that hints at a hidden reward.
It does.
Calling it funky instead of spoiled or rotten is essentially giving you permission to lean into the strangeness.
Wow. Yes. It tells you that the weirdness is intentional.
Exactly. And if you are brave enough to stick around, you might just find joy in it.
It completely reframes the experience. It removes the judgment. You are no longer smelling something dangerous. You are smelling something culturally complex.
I love that. Culturally complex. But if this funky smell is an acquired taste, and if it acts like a giant invisible warning sign to our brains, the natural next step in our progression today is figuring out the source.
The science part.
Yeah, the science. Where does that intense, pungent scent actually come from on a chemical level?
Well, the science behind the dish is just as fascinating as the language used to describe it. The core reason for that aggressive smell is a process we rely on for countless staple foods around the world.
Which is?
The tofu is fermented.
Aha, fermentation. I mean, fermentation is basically the invisible engine behind so much of human civilization.
It really is.
It gives us bread, it gives us beer, it gives us wine and yogurt.
Exactly. But in the case of stinky tofu, the raw tofu blocks are submerged and left to soak in a very specific brine.
A brine.
Right. Generally speaking, a brine is a heavily salted liquid used for preserving food or, infusing it with flavor over a long period.
Okay, so what does this all mean when we look at the actual ingredients of this specific brine? Because I looked at the traditional components detailed in our source, and I have to say, it is a genuinely intimidating list.
It is definitely not your average marinade.
No. You are taking fermented milk, you are adding various vegetables, and you are adding meat.
Yep.
You mix all that together into a liquid, and you just let it sit there to ferment. How does a mixture of fermented milk and meat turn into something people wait in line to eat?
I know. It sounds chaotic. It sounds entirely counterintuitive to how we normally think about food safety and preparation today.
Very much so. You are taking a liquid bath of old milk and meat, soaking porous blocks of tofu in it, and allowing nature to take its course.
It is quite a mental hurdle.
It's easy to see why someone might mistake the process for a hazard rather than a delicacy.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing. Fermentation is not rot. It is controlled, purposeful transformation.
Controlled transformation.
Yes. When you combine those ingredients, the milk, the vegetables, the meat, and let them sit in a heavily salted environment, natural beneficial bacteria begin to go to work.
Okay.
Over days or even months, those bacteria break down the complex proteins in the ingredients into basic amino acids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this biological breakdown creates an incredibly dense, complex chemical profile. It is a slow, cold cooking process driven by microbes.
So the microbes are doing the cooking.
In a way, yes. And the byproduct of that process is the pungent, funky smell that clears the street.
The street clearing scent. Okay, so the brine does the invisible work, but the process is not finished there, right?
No, not at all.
Because you can't just pull the tofu out of that liquid and hand it to a customer.
Definitely not.
The real magic, the crucial step that turns this intimidating biological process into a beloved street food, requires extreme heat.
Yes, the deep frying stage. This changes the entire chemical landscape of the tofu.
Really? How so?
Well, when the fermented block is dropped into a vat of boiling oil, the intense heat triggers a massive chemical reaction.
Good.
The volatile compounds that create the pungent odor are rapidly altered. What was just a sharp, aggressive smell in the air transforms into something entirely different on the palate.
It changes completely.
Exactly, it becomes savory.
Savory. Oh, savory is such a satisfying word.
It really is the best word for it.
It's a flavor profile that stands completely apart from sweet or sour or bitter. It is that rich, deep, mouth-watering quality you find in roasted meats, dark mushroom broths, or like aged soy sauce.
Yes, it is the taste of pure satisfaction.
Pure satisfaction.
And the transformation from a pungent, challenging odor to a deeply savory, rich flavor is so dramatic that the text provides a classic English idiom that perfectly captures the dynamic.
Well, right, the idiom.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the concept that its bark is worse than its bite.
Its bark is worse than its bite. I love that. You typically hear that idiom used to describe like a small, incredibly loud dog.
Right, exactly.
You walk past a yard, and this tiny dog is barking aggressively, baring its teeth, making an absolute racket to convince you that it is a terrifying threat.
The dog is projecting danger through its bark. But if you actually open the gate and walk up to it, the dog is harmless.
Right.
The bark was a bluff. It's not actually going to bite you.
Applying that idiom to a Chinese street food is brilliant. Because the smell of the tofu is the bark.
It is a very loud bark.
It is loud, it is aggressive, and it is actively intimidating you from a block away.
Mm-hmm.
The pungent scent is throwing up a wall, trying to convince you that eating it would be a terrible mistake.
Yes.
But the bite, the actual physical act of tasting the savory deep-fried tofu, is incredibly friendly and comforting.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this idiom beautifully illustrates the psychological barrier separating the tourists who run away from the locals who stand in line.
Oh, that's so true.
Right. The people fleeing the night market are reacting purely to the bark. They're allowing the aggressive scent to trick them into believing the flavor will be equally hostile.
They're falling for the bluff.
Exactly. But the people who have acquired the taste, the people waiting patiently for their order, they know that the bark is just a bluff. They know the reward waiting behind that smell is a rich, satisfying, savory bite.
It's a profound reminder of how language can bridge cultural experiences.
It really is.
An idiom originally meant to describe a noisy neighborhood pet perfectly encapsulates the sensory journey of eating fermented tofu in a bustling night market.
Language is amazing like that.
It is. The human experience of facing an intimidating facade and discovering a wonderful reality underneath is completely universal.
It absolutely is universal. And once you have decided to call the bluff, once you have ignored the pungent bark and committed to the bite, you are presented with a culinary masterpiece.
And one that relies entirely on structural engineering, which is so cool.
Oh, the texture is everything.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You have stood your ground, you've placed your order, and you are handed a steaming portion of freshly deep-fried stinky tofu.
The moment of truth.
The moment of truth. Now we have to talk about the physical reality of the dish, starting with the visual and textural impact. The outside of the tofu is transformed by the boiling oil into a hard, crispy shell.
Very crispy.
Usually we picture this as a deep golden brown color.
Well, usually, yes. However, if you are experiencing the famous Changsha style of stinky tofu, The exterior is not golden at all.
Oh,
It is pitch black.
pitch black. A pitch black, pungent block of deep-fried food.
Yeah, visually it is intense.
From an evolutionary standpoint, every instinct we have tells us to avoid things that are pitch black and smell funky. It just adds another massive layer to the intimidation factor.
It is a double bluff, really.
A double bluff. But whether it is golden brown or charcoal black, the defining characteristic of that exterior is the crispiness. It shatters when you bite into it.
But a crispy shell is only half of the equation here.
Right.
A dish that is entirely crispy is just dry. The true brilliance of stinky tofu lies in the extreme contrast between the outside and the inside.
Yes, the contrast. Once your teeth break through that rigid, crispy exterior, the inside is described in our source as spongy and juicy.
Spongy is such an interesting choice of word.
It is. Spongy is a very particular word. In everyday life, we associate sponges with cleaning tools.
Right, like something you use to scrub a countertop or wash the dishes.
Exactly. It is not a word you typically want associated with your dinner.
It sounds kind of unappetizing if you take it out of context. But in culinary terms, a spongy texture is an absolute triumph of design.
Triumph of design. I like that. Think about the physical properties of a sponge. Its entire purpose is to be porous, to be full of tiny air pockets and holes.
Yes,
Those holes serve a very specific function. They act as a flavor vacuum.
a flavor vacuum is exactly what it is. Because when the street vendor takes that freshly fried portion of tofu and covers it in their signature topping,
Oh, the toppings.
yeah, pouring on vibrant spicy chili sauce, minced garlic, soy sauce, and fragrant oils, all of that liquid needs somewhere to go.
Right. Because if the inside of the tofu was dense and solid, the sauce would just slide right off the sides and pool at the bottom of the bowl.
Which would be a waste of good sauce.
A tragedy, really.
Yeah.
But because the intense heat of the deep fryer cooks the outside so quickly, the interior remains soft, yielding, and completely spongy.
And it absorbs every single drop of that garlicky, spicy liquid.
Every drop.
And that absorption is what leads to the next descriptive word, which is juicy.
Juicy.
Right? When you take a bite, the brittle, crispy shell shatters and the spongy interior immediately compresses.
Oh, wow.
And it releases a flood of hot, savory, intensely flavorful liquid directly onto your palate.
That sounds incredible. It is a perfectly engineered delivery system for flavor.
It really is engineered perfectly.
The contrast between the rigid, defensive exterior and the soft, yielding, sauce-soaked interior is what makes the dish so addictive. The physical structure is just as important as the chemical fermentation process.
It is, but this raises an important question, though, about the overall culinary balance of the dish.
Okay, balance.
We have established that the tofu is deep fried in heavy oil. It is soaked in a rich, complex, fermented brine. It is saturated in savory, spicy, garlicky sauces.
There's a lot of heavy elements.
Exactly. If you were to eat bite after bite of only that, palate fatigue would set in immediately.
You just get tired of eating it.
Right. It is simply too heavy, too rich, and too intense to consume in large quantities without a break.
That makes total sense. And that is exactly why the final elements added to the dish are absolutely critical. You cannot just serve the heavy tofu on its own. It requires a counterweight.
A counterweight, I like that.
And that counterweight comes in the form of the toppings, specifically pickled radish and fresh cilantro.
These ingredients serve a very precise function. The cilantro brings a bright, aromatic, herbal note to the dish.
And the pickled radish brings a sharp, acidic, cold crunch.
Yes.
It is the complete opposite of the hot, oily, savory tofu.
It is. And the precise word used to describe the effect of these toppings is refreshing.
Refreshing, like drinking a glass of ice-cold lemon water after walking outside on a sweltering summer afternoon.
Exactly like that. When your mouth is coated in the heavy, rich fats of the deep-fried oil and the savory depth of the fermented brine, you need something to cut through the richness.
You need a reset.
Exactly. The sharp acidity of the pickled radish acts like a reset button for your palate. It cleanses your mouth.
It literally refreshes your senses, lifting the heavy weight of the fat and preparing you to fully experience the joy of the next bite all over again.
Yes.
Without the refreshing crunch of the radish and the bright lift of the cilantro, the dish would just collapse under its own weight. The balance is what elevates it from a novelty to a culinary staple.
It is a remarkable journey. When you look at the complete picture, you realize that the words we use to describe this dish are not just random adjectives.
No, they're not.
They tell a story.
They really do. They map out the entire sensory experience from start to finish. You begin with the pungent scent, that aggressive, sharp wall of odor that demands your attention and triggers your fears.
Then you uncover the fermented reality, the ancient, invisible science of bacteria transforming raw ingredients into a deeply complex flavor profile.
Then you move on to the physical architecture, discovering the spongy interior that acts as the perfect vessel to absorb the rich, savory sauces beneath a crispy shell.
And you finally arrive at the realization that the experience is undeniably funky. It is unconventional, it is challenging, but it is ultimately rewarding and deeply satisfying.
It is a narrative of conquering your initial hesitation. And honestly, analyzing this entire process leaves you with a thought that stretches far beyond the confines of a bustling night market.
It really does. The overarching lesson of Stinky Tofu is about the value of ignoring our initial reflexive alarms. Yeah.
If we know that funky foods require us to bravely push past an intimidating, pungent exterior to discover a rich, savory reward, it begs a much larger question.
Right. What other experiences in life are operating on the exact same principle?
Exactly. How many unfamiliar cultures, intimidating subjects, or strange new experiences are we actively running away from simply because they have a loud bark?
Oh, that's a great way to frame it.
How many deeply rewarding, incredibly satisfying aspects of human life are we missing out on just because our initial exposure feels a little uncomfortable or, well, pungent?
That is a phenomenal thought for you to carry with you today.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most beautiful, complex, and satisfying things in life do not present themselves as easy or instantly appealing.
They rarely do.
Right. They require a little bit of bravery up front. We have to be willing to look past the pitch black exterior and the loud bark. We have to learn to acquire the taste for the unknown.
We have to trust that the bite will be worth the initial shock. Beautifully said. Well, we hope you have enjoyed exploring the sights, the smells, and the incredibly rich vocabulary of this legendary dish with us today.
It's been a great conversation.
It has been an absolute blast unpacking the sensory shock of stinky tofu and the language we use to make sense of it. And as we wrap up today's journey, if you enjoy discovering these new flavors and learning how to articulate these wild culinary experiences, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Please do.
It helps us continue bringing you these deep dives into the fascinating places where language and culture collide. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.